You know, I got to be honest with you here, boss. You don't want to give me that gun. 'Cause I'd probably shoot you with it.
If they're trying to present themselves as a democratic nation, as a free nation, trying to get Africans under their wing, and Africans in America are under revolt and they're crushing them, it will cause too many problems. But J. Edgar Hoover was not a fool. He understood his job. He had to crush this movement. That's why COINTELPRO was not only instituted, was also quiet. Because this one could not get out because it was aimed really just at us.
This is Sassy with your Black Agenda Report, morning shot for February 25th, 2011. Now, y'all must have thought we had joined the Obama-Rama camp out of disillusionment, but nah, we remain still standing and fighting. We be on our local organizing grinds just like y'all. But now on to these bullet points. It should come as no surprise to followers of the FBI's raids on peace activists and concoction of terrorist plots that entrap the Muslim community that the National Law Museum in Washington, D.C. will name itself to reflect the legacy of one of the most vicious enemies of the African liberation struggle, J. Edgar Hoover. The museum will become operational in 2013 and is being named for Hoover because it acquired 4,000 of his personal effects. Now, while we can all decry this, as we should, perhaps the solution would be to construct our own J. Edgar Hoover museums and community centers and churches, replete with documents and media that show just how much of a devil the COINTELPRO creator really was, and the endurance of his legacy. Right next to a document with hella strike-throughs in it, we should put a life-size portrait of one of COINTELPRO's victims, such as Afeni Shakur or Geronimo Pratt. We should take the lesson of the Black Liberation Army that the law enforcement's attacks on our nation, and best believe that a law enforcement museum that is named after Hoover is indeed an attack on our nation, should face retaliation. We can take the time to organize nation teach-ins with former political prisoners who were targeted by Hoover in order to ramp up local revolutionary activity. But I'll let y'all take it from there. Oh, and just for some added neocolonial acid, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, or NOBLE, has been a major donor to the museum. Speaking of all sorts of federal government repression, the Senate extended 3 provisions of the Patriot Act last Wednesday, the 16th. According to Russian television, these aspects include roving wiretaps, tracking foreigners alleged to have ties to militant groups, and the accessing of business records and investigating of individuals who may seek to engage in terror as individuals. J. Edgar Hoover lives on in the Obama regime. To compound this crackdown on anything and everything, new legislation named the SHIELD Act has been put forth with an intent to help the U.S. government prosecute WikiLeaks and other leakers of so-called classified information. SHIELD would amend the Espionage Act by considering the publication of classified materials to be an act of espionage. The logic goes like this. WikiLeaks and OpenLeaks and local leaks are threats to national security because they make public documents that bear the identities of U.S. servicemen and intelligence sources. Anybody who endangers those lives are enemies of the United States in general. Well, our logic goes like this. The United States is a threat to galaxial security. Interstellar space, and John Coltrane at that, aren't even safe from the genocidal index finger pointed by Uncle Sam. Additionally, the U.S. is a threat to its own security because its oppressive behavior towards the rest of the world and its domestic population necessitate a response from the oppressed if those oppressed people are even expected to merely survive, let alone free themselves from oppression. Lastly, the United States is an enemy of the entire world. Therefore, anybody who publishes information that delves into the details of the enemy's plots and schemes must be punished to the fullest extent of the oppressor's law and made an example of to the masses, i.e. Julian Assange. Sadly, the often neglected point about the continuing WikiLeaks saga is that when we look at COINTELPRO and other programs of repression in retrospect, it doesn't take classified documents to conclude that the U.S. is dirty as hell. But that's why corporate media and public education are constantly imbuing regular folks with the narrative of a humanitarian Captain America that only takes time off of his busy schedule of walking geriatric churchwomen across the street to gear up and fight the good fight against brown-skinned bad guys who can't manage their resource wealth well, or at least not as well as U.S.-backed mercenary armies and rulers accompanied by multinational corporations and banks can. Aha! Speaking of U.S.-backed rulers, we turn our sights to Haiti and the return of Baby Doc Duvalier, coinciding with the falsified elections. Leslie Manigat and Michel Sweet Mickey Martelly will participate in a March 20th runoff to decide who wins the presidency. Charlie Hinton's recent piece in the San Francisco Bayview entitled Haiti, Annul the Elections, provides excellent historical background to the two candidates and illustrates why voting for either of them is a damn trap. We quote it at length. Leslie Manigat, husband of the leading contender, made his political debut under Francois Duvalier's tutelage as part of the Noirist movement, whose goal was for elite black Haitians to become part of Haiti's ruling, but mainly light-skinned elite. He founded the Noirist Institute of Higher Learning in 1958 at the request of Duvalier. Some say it was Manigat who advised Duvalier to create the private militia known as the Tonton Macoutes in order to counter the power of Haiti's regular army. Michel Martelly pledged that if elected, he will make Duvalier one of his advisors. Martelly's ties to the former dictator can be traced to his youth. He joined the Tonton Macoutes at the age of 15. He later attended Haiti's military academy, closed by Papa Doc to eliminate a potential rival, then reorganized and opened by Baby Doc. Under the Duvalier dictatorship, Martelly ran the Garage, a nightclub patronized by army officers and members of Haiti's tiny ruling class. After Baby Doc's fall in February 1986, a mass democratic movement, long repressed by the Duvaliers, burst forth and became known as Lavalas. Martelly quickly became a bitter Lavalas opponent, attacking the popular movement in his songs played widely on Haitian radio. Martelly was closely identified with sympathizers of the 1991 military coup that ousted former President Jean-Bertrand Aristide. The Miami Herald observed in 1996 and ran with members of the infamous FRAF death squads. Furthermore, Hinton's article quotes Duvalier's lawyer's assessment that Baby Doc might even himself run for president in the future. And we wish we had more to report on the following videotaped savage beating of 16-year-old Houston resident Chad Holley, who was 15 at the time of this beating. We wish we had more to report because at the current moment, all that is going on are fake gestures like town hall meetings where people can express their outrage, vent about past occurrences of police terror, and pretty much cool their asses off and feel like something was done by being provided a platform to air their grievances. The same way that Trey Joyner's situation was dealt with in the Trinidad sector of Northeast Washington, D.C. in 2009, and countless other examples like it is being relived by Houston residents as we speak. This basically accounts to a photo op for the police forces whose own members are the terror agents. Oh, if movies could only be real.
I just met the most marvelous bunch of niggers. the most marvelous bunch. You get him?